preparation of the building of the Jacob Blaustein International Center for Desert Studies carries a very significant meaning for all of us at Ben-Gurion University in general and the Jacob Blaustein Institute in particular. The whole idea to establish a center of learning concerning our Negev desert, as well as deserts the world over, is that of David Ben-Gurion, who coined the name for this enterprise, Oxford on the Zin, where the work and achievements of our scientists in this country will first of all lead the way to the settlement of our Negev desert, but also establish Israel as a world leader in the mission to uplift humanity in the arid regions of the world in which poverty, deprivation, and even often hunger prevail today.
As we drove down here, we passed a number of Bedouin tents. And as I looked out here, I see again a symbol of a tent. And yet, behind us, there is this magnificent new edifice to carry on the work of the Desert Research Institute, named after the Blaustein family. The International Center, plus the graduate school, are all components of very forward-looking people. Together with the directors of the Institute, they have really planned for the future, and we are proud of that effort.
It's a special pleasure for me to be here today representing the American Associates of Ben-Gurion University, because in my administration, this is the first opportunity I've had to express directly to the Blaustein family our deep appreciation on behalf of the American Associates for the marvelous support given to the Associates in the last decade.
For 4,000 years, the Jewish people have been struggling with the desert. It started when Abraham, the patriarch, went on his territorial trip of many thousands of miles through the terrible deserts between Ur Kasdim and the Promised Land. And ever since, the Jewish people have been struggling in the physical and also in the spiritual deserts of the Western world. It seems, therefore, quite appropriate that the Jewish people should become leaders in the struggle against the deserts throughout the world. And to this, we are extremely indebted to the Blaustein family, who have given us the ability to approach this tremendous challenge.
Now we dedicate 3 scrolls for the 3 branches of the Blaustein family. Of course, I'll read one. Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. We have assembled here on this 16th day of November, 1992, to dedicate the building of the Jacob Blaustein International Center for Desert Studies. This new building will enable scientists and students from Israel and around the world to pursue desert research and will contribute to the flourishing of innovative study at the Jacob Blaustein Institute for Desert Research. Ben-Gurion University of the Negev offers its thanks for this magnanimous gift, which reflects the generosity of its donors and which will facilitate the tapping of Israel's rich reservoir of scientific and technical expertise and promote the dissemination of knowledge on the science and development of arid regions.
It was 11 years ago that we stood here on this beautiful campus to dedicate the Jacob Blaustein Institute for Desert Research. At that time, we were so thrilled to be involved in this very special endeavor of researching ways to help end the world's hunger, of developing methods of utilizing energy more effectively, and generally furthering the understanding of how people can live more productively and in greater comfort in the desert. Just prior to that dedication, our son Bob had spent several months here as a volunteer, helping to set up your very first computer system. He had expressed to us his belief that the people working here were some of the most real people that he had ever met. And it certainly didn't take long for us to find out that he was absolutely right. At that initial ceremony, we were so buoyed up by your warm welcome, which marked the beginning of many close friendships between us. Of course, we've been back many times since 1981, and each visit rekindles our friendships and causes us to stand in renewed awe of your extraordinary scientific accomplishments. And here we are again, 11 years later. Once again, we're thrilled to be participating in another exciting dedication. This International Center, which we're dedicating today, epitomizes, it seems to me, your creative talents, your commitment to excellence, your passion for exchanging your findings with other researchers from all over the world, and serves as a grand culmination of many of the architectural, energy-efficient principles which you have been working on for these past years. All of us in my family derive enormous pleasure from our involvement with this dynamic undertaking, and I'd like to introduce those of them who are here with me today. First, I'd like to introduce my husband, Arthur Roswell. He's an engineer, and he understands much more clearly what you're doing here than I do. My daughter, Margie Roswell. Margie's knowledge of botany and her career in ecology parallels many of your interests here. And I'm pleased to introduce my sister, Barbara Blaustein Hirschhorn, and my brother-in-law, David Hirschhorn. They have been instrumental in making this entire shidduch between us and you come about. Now, you might be asking yourselves, how in the world did an American family from Baltimore, Maryland, ever get involved in a place so totally remote as Stay-Beaucaire? Well, I can't wait to tell you. In a nutshell, my father, Jacob Blaustein, for whom this institute is named, was keenly interested in the relationship between America and Israel, and as president of the American Jewish Committee from 1949 to 1954, he formed a close personal relationship with David Ben-Gurion. I'd like to share excerpts from two particular messages which my father received from David Ben-Gurion, which illuminate the nature of their relationship. And one of them, I believe, maybe the other, is in the administrative office here, is on the wall. On January 21st, 1954, the night Dad retired as president of the American Jewish Committee, David Ben-Gurion sent a telegram which read in part, "Please transmit to my dear friend Blaustein my sincere admiration for his services to Jewry and to Israel. If, after relinquishing presidency, he is willing to retire to the Negev, the whole community of Stay-Beaucaire will welcome him most heartily." 9 years later, Ben-Gurion wrote in a letter to Dad, "You are the only person from abroad who addresses me by my first name. You are the only person abroad whom I address by his first name and only in Hebrew. I have a number of American Jewish friends and acquaintances, but except for former Justice Frankfurter and the later Justice Brandeis, I have never enjoyed such friendly relations with any of them as I have with you." Now, my father was a son of an American immigrant from Lithuania, so you might wonder how the son of a Lithuanian immigrant could ever become able to touch base with such a prime world figure as David Ben-Gurion. Well, the answer lies in my father's vibrant life story that our family wishes to share in about 4 minutes with you today. After emigrating to the United States, my grandfather, Louis, worked as a salesman for the Standard Oil Company. When in 1910 he was asked to go back to Europe to sell over there, Grandma balked and said, "Nothing doing. I had enough of the old country. I'm not going back. Our children were born in America, and I want them reared in America, a free country." I must say that the image of my grandmother as a short, mild woman makes me marvel at how she managed to put her foot down so effectively, because with Grandma's foot down, Grandpa was essentially out of a job. Grandpa asked my father to leave his studies at Lehigh University and to help him form a joint business venture. This venture consisted of a one-horse-drawn wagon, tank wagon, which carried my father and my grandfather up and down the streets of Baltimore, Maryland, peddling kerosene door to door. But it wasn't long before they found that gasoline, rather than kerosene, was the wave of the future, and it was this type of forward thinking that eventually caused the company to develop into a major business enterprise. One example of their forward thinking was that they established the very first off-the-road drive-in filling station, which they called the Lord Baltimore Filling Station. And they soon saw the need for high-test unleaded gasoline and hired a chemist who developed this under the name Amoco. We're always proud to tell people that it was Amoco which powered Lindbergh's famous nonstop flight between the United States and Europe. One other example of their vision was that they developed the first see-through gasoline pump so that there could be no mistake about how much gasoline one was purchasing. Along with this new pump, they introduced a motto which Morton, Barbara, and I would chant as children: "You get what you see, and you see what you get. You get what you see, and you see what you get." As my father and grandfather continued to develop the American Oil Company, Dad became involved in local, national, and international affairs, and he became increasingly devoted to his native city of Baltimore, to the country America, to his Judaism, to the issue of human rights, and to the state of Israel. He dedicated untold hours to the American Jewish Committee and began his lifelong commitment to working on behalf of improving human rights. In 1945, President Roosevelt authorized him to attend the San Francisco Conference for the Establishment of the United Nations, and there he helped provide for the Human Rights Charter of the UN. And as I mentioned before, he was president of the American Jewish Committee from 1949 to 1954, and here is where his association with David Ben-Gurion began. In 1955, President Eisenhower appointed him as an alternate delegate to the United Nations. And one vital issue he dealt with in the UN was the fate of World War II refugees who had fled Russia and other countries behind the Iron Curtain. Dad's efforts helped defeat a Soviet proposal to the General Assembly that these refugees return voluntarily to their homelands. In other words, forced repatriation. But to me, some of Dad's most meaningful international work occurred when he became senior vice president of the Conference on Jewish Material Claims against Germany. In this capacity, he negotiated for the procurement of billions of dollars in restitution. And I remember years later that his encounters with these tough German industrialists presented the most difficult negotiations he ever had to work on. Dad's work in Jewish and international affairs put him in touch with many people who had later associations with this university. For example, you might be interested to know the Shulamit Zarmi's father, Rahav Amir, was ambassador to Poland, and he and Dad met when my father visited Poland with a group of other American oil men. Not too long ago, Ambassador Amir recounted how much it meant to him when my father insisted that a particular high-powered business meeting be postponed because Dad's priority was to join others at the Israeli consulate to celebrate Israel's Independence Day. This center certainly adds a special distinction to this institute in that it functions as a place for scientists and for students from all over the world to come to conduct research, exchange ideas, and then return home and apply their findings to arid areas within their own countries. So, Mr. Ben-Gurion, wherever you are, although your invitation to Dad to retire to the Negev was not carried out in actuality, it really was carried out in spirit. And once again, our family is proud to link our father's name with your vision of reclaiming and greening the desert. And to all of you who work here, we pay tribute to you for transforming this dream into a reality, and we wish you much luck and fulfillment in the future. Thank you.
First, I would like to say how moved I was by what Betty Rosewell told us about her father. It's a story which in many ways typifies, symbolizes the special talent and the special contribution the Jews have made to the United States of America and indeed to other countries. And I must say that her description of the story of this famous Baltimore family was the highlight of this ceremony.
1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. That's